Hi, welcome to our daily encounter. Today in Psalms 39 in verse 4 through 6 in our reading, we have the psalmist asking for something that is very, very important, and it's something that not many people ask for when they go to the Lord in prayer. Listen to what he says. He says, "Lord, make me to know my end, and what is the extent of my days. Let me know how transient I am. Behold, you have made my days as handbreadths, and my lifetime as nothing in your sight. Surely every man at his best is a mere breath. Surely every man walks about as a phantom. Surely they make an uproar for nothing. He amasses riches and does not know who will gather them." Here the psalmist is touching on something very, very real and something very, very true, but something that is oftentimes forgotten and sometimes purposely forgotten. That is our temporary nature. It is that all of us are just, at least in this current state, we are all just temporary people. Surely we know this from experience as we look around, as we see even celebrities pass away. We see perhaps acquaintances pass away, maybe even loved ones, friends pass away. This all impresses upon our hearts just how temporary this life is. But I'm afraid many of us simply push that out of our minds. We don't think about, and we don't like to think about, the fact that one day this life will end. We busy ourselves with work, with hobbies, with entertainment, all the while pushing back, and pushing back the reality of our destiny. And that's not healthy and that's not good. This can lead us into a spiritually deficient life. And there's several reasons why this happens. For one, when we forget about how temporary we are, we begin to boast in tomorrow. As James chapter 4 brings out, and starting in verse 13, where he says, "Come now, you who say, today or tomorrow we will go to such and such a city, and spend a year there, and engage in business and make a profit. Yet you do not know what your life will be like tomorrow. You are just a vapor that appears for a little while, and then vanishes away. Instead, you ought to say, if the Lord wills, we will live and also do this or that. But as it is, you boast in your arrogance. All such boasting is evil. Therefore, to one who knows the right thing to do and does not do it, to him it is sin." So here James says that we boast in tomorrow when we just assume that tomorrow is going to come. Yeah, well, let's get together, let's get this business deal going. And we'll go out and we'll do business for a year, make a profit. And he's saying, instead you ought to say, if the Lord is willing. In other words, I know that I don't know what my tomorrow will be like. I may not be here tomorrow or the next day. We just don't know how long our lives are. And even if we live to the full extent of life expectancy, our life is still short. And we should not boast of tomorrow. Why? Well, for one, he says such boasting is evil. And secondly, it leads us to procrastinate. A lot of times, verse 17 is taken out of context, where it says, "Therefore, to one who knows the right thing to do and does not do it, to him it is sin." And we make that kind of broad to talk about anything. Well, something you were supposed to do something, you didn't do it, and it was a sin. And definitely that truth could apply to such circumstances, but let's not forget the context as well. Why is it that he's saying that it is wrong to know what the right thing is to do and not to do it? It's because you're not seizing opportunities as they arise because you're boasting in tomorrow. In other words, you're procrastinating. All around us are many, many things that we could be doing in service to the Lord, in service to God's people, in service to the poor, the sick, the needy. We're surrounded by a world of need. And when we think, well, it's okay because I have a long life ahead of me, and we push back doing service to others, then what are we doing? We are procrastinating. We know what the good is to do, and we're not doing it because perhaps we think, well, I'll get to it tomorrow. And so, forgetting how transient we are, how temporary we are, causes us to boast in tomorrow and, as a result, to procrastinate. The third thing that can happen is that we begin to lose perspective. We begin to lose perspective in life. That's why it's so important for us from time to time to enter into places of mourning, such as funerals. These are not pleasant things. Nobody really likes to go to funerals. I know as preachers, that's the last thing we want to do is have to give a funeral service. It's not a pleasant experience, but it's a very helpful experience. In the book of Ecclesiastes, in chapter 7, and in verse 2, it says, "It is better to go to a house of mourning than to go to a house of feasting, because that is the end of every man, and the living takes it to heart. Sorrow is better than laughter, for when a face is sad, a heart may be happy. The mind of the wise is in the house of mourning, while the mind of fools is in the house of pleasure." Well, what is he saying here? He's saying it's better to be in the house of mourning, that is a funeral, because that is the end of every man. And it gives us perspective. He says, and the living takes it to heart. We need to have the proper perspective in life and to recognize that our lives are coming to an end. If not, we lose perspective. Our lives become loose. Our lives become just passing day by day, not living a purposeful life, and we just lose perspective altogether. The other thing is, as a kind of a result of that, is we do lose focus. We lose focus and forget about what our true purpose is here on this earth, and that is to glorify God and to do Him service. And when we again forget about how temporary we are, we lose focus of why we're here. And then lastly, we begin to become lax when it comes to sin. We just think, well, okay, well, we when we start thinking of ourselves as indestructible, we think of death as something that's way off far in the distance. We think, well, I can sin and I'll take care of that later. I'll try to overcome this sin on another day. Instead of meeting the Lord in prayer and saying, Lord, I want to overcome this today because I don't know if I'll be here tomorrow. And I need to practice holiness and have you help me grow in holiness every single day instead of waiting for it to happen somewhere way down the road. So these are just some things to think about. I know this isn't a pleasant thing to think about our end, the fact that our lives will end one day, but once again, it is a very necessary truth and one that we should think about often. I thank you guys for listening in today. I love you guys. Hope you guys have a great day. God bless.